Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've ever felt totally paralyzed by the sheer volume of financial advice floating around out there, trust me, you are not alone. Today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're stripping away the hype, ignoring the complex jargon, and we're going to look at the absolute, bare-bones realities of building wealth.
So, over the last 6 months or so, I took on what became a pretty relentless deep dive. I actually sat down and read exactly 47 different best-selling books entirely focused on money, wealth, and investing. I was basically hunting for a true unified blueprint for becoming rich.
Now, I went through the heavy hitters, massive bestsellers like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Psychology of Money, and Atomic Habits. And honestly, a tidal wave of conflicting information hit me almost immediately. Every single author out there seemed to promise entirely different rules, totally different systems, and their own unique, quote-unquote, secrets.
But as I kept reading, a really fascinating pattern started to emerge. Because despite all their profound differences, there was actually one single hidden idea that every single author fundamentally agreed upon. Buried beneath all those differing strategies was one unified truth. So what is it? Well, before we get to that, let's look at part 1, the complexity illusion, and how the internet basically sells us confusion. You see, the modern wealth industry absolutely thrives on overwhelming us with noise. Think about it. You are bombarded daily with convoluted crypto systems, flashy day trading strategies, and those $1,000 masterclasses promising to unlock your financial chakras or whatever. The industry pushes this constant barrage to make wealth look incredibly complicated and, conveniently, entirely out of your reach without their help. It really boils down to this harsh reality check. Simplicity doesn't sell very well. The financial machine pushes chaos for a reason, because the simple, boring truth just isn't profitable for them. It is infinitely easier to sell you a high-priced secret method than to teach the mundane reality of how money actually grows.
Which brings us to part 2, the contradictory advice, or being pulled in a million different directions.
Reading all 47 of these books creates an almost immediate sense of paralysis. You'll read entire stacks of books insisting that leveraging real estate is the absolute guaranteed path to wealth. But then you flip the page to another highly respected author, and they'll claim that bootstrapping your own business is literally the only mandatory way to actually get rich.
And the contradictions, they don't stop there. Some philosophies demand super aggressive, high-risk investing to multiply your money as fast as possible. Meanwhile, the complete opposite camp preaches absolute frugality. They're telling you to pinch every single penny, skip that morning coffee, and literally just save your way to millions.
The result? Total paralysis. It feels like no matter what strategy you pick, there's always going to be some best-selling author out there telling you you've made a terrible mistake and you should be doing the exact opposite. Honestly, it's exhausting.
Okay, part 3, the hidden pattern, or finding the signal in all that noise.
So after pushing past that initial wave of confusion from those 47 books, a really profound realization started to emerge. These authors, they had wildly different personalities, right? They used totally different language, and they sold completely different strategies. But as the noise faded, an undeniable pattern surfaced. Underneath the whole shebang, they relied on the exact same core behavior. Almost every single book, when you trace it all the way down to its foundation, points back to one single word: consistency. True wealth isn't about raw intelligence. It's definitely not about having some magical secret strategy. The ultimate unifying thread across every single one of these paths is simply consistency.
The absolute reality of wealth is that the people who quietly execute boring, smart decisions over a span of decades, well, those are the ones who actually win. It's a form of behavioral arbitrage. It's not some dramatic, fast-paced movie montage. It's the quiet, relentless repetition of doing the right thing when absolutely no one is watching.
Let me give you a really concrete example of this unflashy reality. Step 1, you set up a simple, automatic investment into an index fund. Step 2, you repeat it every single month regardless of what the market is doing. And that's it. It doesn't require a genius-level IQ, it just requires you to consistently execute a remarkably boring plan.
This leads us perfectly into part 4, the boring truth and the psychology behind wealth. This is the part where we really have to look inward. Because if the blueprint is actually this simple, if it's literally right there in front of us, it begs a pretty vital psychological question. Why on earth do we completely ignore it? If it's that easy, why isn't everyone doing this?
Well,
The answer is staring right at us. Consistency is boring. And let's face it, boring doesn't go viral. Human psychology has this deep-seated bias against mundane repetition. Nobody online wants to hear that the secret to wealth is repeating a basic chore every month for 30 years. That doesn't spike our dopamine. It definitely doesn't trend on TikTok, and it for sure isn't going to sell a $5,000 masterclass.
So we constantly face this internal conflict. Our natural human desire wants to chase the next big trend, the shiny shortcuts, the rapid acceleration. We all kind of want the winning lottery ticket. But the unglamorous reality is the slow climb. And a lot of times, we would rather chase an exciting illusion than embrace the guaranteed, unglamorous stairs.
After crunching the data and analyzing all 47 of these books, the biggest lesson I walked away with completely dismantled the modern myth of sudden wealth. The most powerful takeaway wasn't some hidden formula for getting rich quickly. Actually, scratch that, it wasn't about speed at all.
The ultimate lesson is captured right here. It was learning how normal, everyday people slowly become wealthy without ever looking impressive. Honestly, I find that incredibly empowering. You don't need to be a flashy genius. You just need to be relentlessly consistent. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. So I'll leave you with this. What is your first boring, smart decision going to be?